Wow. Today, folks, is a much overdue recording. Then again, there is no time, right? There's only gratitude, and I'm super grateful for you to be here. Tim.
I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Heyl, the man who I've been hearing about for 7 years in this real estate office, and I've seen his name every month. I've seen his name on the papers of top-of-the-chart real estate pros for sales volume. I'm like, what's this guy doing? And of course, you hear through the grapevine how you built your business. What an incredible, inspiring story.
Thank you.
Which makes you an ideal guest for our show today. So folks, buckle your seatbelts because we're about to go on a real estate roller coaster ride with Tim Heyl. That's right. So we got a little bio here. Tim Heyl founded the Heyl Group as one of the top 5 real estate producers throughout Keller Williams Realty International. The Heyl Group continues to be recognized for their innovative approach to technology and dedication to service, winning the Austin Business Journal's #1 real estate team award 4 years running. Holy smokes. Nice work. As well as appearing 3 consecutive years in the Inc. 5000 list, recognizing the nation's fastest growing private business and Wall Street Journal's top 100. Since 2009, Tim has expanded the Heyl Group from its headquarters in Austin, Texas to the San Antonio, Dallas, and Houston markets. In 2016, the Heyl Group began its national expansion, emerging into multiple markets throughout the U.S. simultaneously. Over the years, Tim has personally coached hundreds of agents through his leverage lead generation program, and today that coaching lives on through his lead generation and ISA coaches, providing small group and one-on-one coaching and training to hundreds of sales professionals each year, as well as his Proven Path course on Aceable Agents Professional Development Program, not to mention the title company that he established and then sold, and the funding platform that we're going to definitely dive into a little bit called Homeward. Guys, and the list probably goes on and on. There's probably things I have no idea about. So hopefully we're going to uncover some of that today.
Let's do it.
Welcome. All right, here we go. So we talked a little bit about where you're at. Why don't you expand upon that? What have you been up to these days? What have you been doing? What's getting you going?
2 things.
Yeah.
My family. I've got 4 little kids.
What?
Yeah. Been married for 13 years, I think. 13 years. And I've got 9, 7, 4, and 1. 4 little kids. So we got a lot going on at home. And then building out Homeward. Homeward is a company that I started about 5 years ago, a little over 5 years ago, with the sort of mission to change the way that people buy and sell homes, not to try and bring some crazy new idea to market, but to really just take out the friction that homeowners feel when they're selling and home buyers feel when they're buying, and trying to identify those pieces that are creating uncertainty, that are creating stress, really, and just trying to create a less stressful way to buy and sell and to make your move. And that there's a lot to unpack there, but been on a mission to figure that out over the last 5 years or so.
Yeah, and I can speak from personal testimony here, but working with clients that have worked with Homeward, it is exactly that, thankfully. Nice job.
Thanks.
Nice job, yeah. Great support staff and smooth process.
Thank you.
Yeah. So other than 4 kids, wife, Homeward, how'd you meet your wife? When was that? Where was that?
We met in high school when we were 13.
You were 13 in high school. That sounds about right.
About that. Yeah, I was young. We
were on the playground?
Yeah, exactly. Probably.
Yeah.
Met in high school. We started dating at the very end of college, 8 years later.
Yeah.
And we got married a few years after college and started having kids shortly after that.
And you went to A&M?
I went to A&M.
Where's your ring?
No ring.
Dude, I won't tell it the I won't tell the A&M fans. All right. I heard it's like sacrilegious if you don't wear the ring.
It's pretty sacrilegious. I get called out.
Okay, that's fair. So, okay, you got that going on. And what else? What have you been doing for fun? Because you got to make time for yourself.
Yeah. For fun.
Ooh.
I like to do lots of things. I like to play golf. I like to fish.
Mm-hmm.
I like to, watch football, play sports. Don't do nearly as much of that today with 4 little kids and a very demanding job. But, every now and again, my goal this year actually has been half day Fridays. One big goal of mine is like carve out, 4 or 5 hours on Friday to go do something fun. So been working on that.
So where did you go Picture a time where you went with your buddies. Where was that? What'd you do?
Well, this last weekend I went down to Wimberley. We went
Nice.
hiking, stayed in my friend's cabin. Honestly, just sat by the fire, talked. We went on a run, just like, talk about life. They're guys just like me. They got kids, they got spouses, they got jobs, and they got crazy stuff going on. And we just took 24 hours to go get away, Friday afternoon to Saturday morning, and just be outside and take it easy.
I'll tell you, I bet that hit the spot, didn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Wow. And it's 24 hours. Nothing crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who's your best friend?
Who's my best friend?
Yeah, who'd you say?
My wife, for sure.
Who's your best bro friend?
My best bro friend? I don't know. I got a handful of them. Yeah.
I like to ask that question because you never know who people end up pairing up with.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny, man. I have such different stages, such different areas of my life. I got at work, I got people that I'm super close with. At my church, I got people I'm super close with. I grew up in Austin, so my high school friends are here. My college friends have mostly moved here.
It's great.
So I have lots of friends, but the reality is over the last 10 years, I've spent less and less time with my friends, and I spent more and more time at home with my wife and kids. So,
it's awesome.
Our friends are kind of our friends together for the most part.
Very cool. Okay, we're going to tie back into that here towards the end, so stay tuned.
Yeah.
I got some good questions for that.
Yeah.
So we know what you got going on right now. Let's throw it way back. Let's get into the juicy stuff, okay?
All right,
because we want to know about what ultimately built your foundation as a man, and a man that most would deem to be successful in the majority of the pillars of life, if not all of them. So you grew up here in Austin. What elementary school did you go to?
St. Louis Catholic School on Burnett Road.
Is it still around?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. What was it like growing up in your household? Did you grow up with two of your parents? Both parents?
Both parents, yeah, and 6 kids, 6 of us. It was a big family.
You got
8 of us at home.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Where'd you end in the lineup?
I'm 4th of 6, so I've got a little brother and a little sister, and then I've got 2 older brothers and an older sister.
What do you feel about that?
It was good. I'm typical middle child. Right down the middle. I was the oldest of the 3 youngest though, so we kind of had our little
crew.
Yeah. Sorry.
Okay. And how was it with your parents? What was it like every day? You come home from school or whatever it was.
It was good.
And
man.
they were there,
Yeah,
doing their thing.
Yeah, I have great parents. I'm incredibly blessed from the house I grew up in. That just the whole household. My dad is an entrepreneur, so I learned a lot about growing up, just seeing him doing his own thing. That was natural and normal. He ran a video store chain when I was really little. He built it and sold it to Blockbuster in the early 90s, and then started a home building business after that. So, from the time I was little, I saw both kind of entrepreneurship and real estate kind of, merged into the same thing. So that was good. And then my mom stayed home and managed 6 kids.
Full-time, overtime, all the time.
Which was a lot. Yeah. Learned a lot from my mom. My mom taught us all discipline. I mean, like she had the 6 kids running daily chores and kind of following our protocols every single day. So learned a lot about habits, discipline. My mom was a great spiritual leader at home for us, taught us a lot about faith and about, the things that were important to her. She really instilled in us. And I think really all 6 of us have really taken that forward.
Faith, would you say you're religious?
Yeah, somewhat so.
Somewhat?
Yeah. I'm a Christian, and I've, been kind of leaning in, developing my faith over my whole life, really, but especially as an adult.
Yeah. Any memorable moments that you would say were a huge challenge in your super youth, and let's say elementary school range? Anything come up for you? As throwing it way back
as a little kid.
Yeah, we have to do this. We have to do this.
Yeah. I think one thing, I talk about this now because my son is a summer birthday, and just going back, I was over a year younger than some people in my grade. I was always like the youngest kid in the grade, and I developed later in life as well. I was like a late bloomer, physically and also non-physically, just kind of a late bloomer. And so I think for most of probably like my middle school years and going into high school, I was just a smaller kid. I was like right down the middle on like athletics or things like that, but I was always on the small end. So I think just, kind of feeling like I was, I don't know, behind a little bit from everybody else was just like a common thread throughout. it's hard to go back that young, when I was just trying to think, elementary school, middle school. That's like the biggest thing that comes to mind is just feeling like.
Yeah, you felt like you were not to size, perhaps. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then when did all that change for you?
My junior year in high school.
Junior year.
Yeah. When I entered high school, I was 99 pounds.
Yeah.
And
wow.
I tried to play football, and it was rough, man. I was little. I was a little guy.
Yeah.
And my senior year, I was almost 200 pounds. I'd almost doubled my body size over the course of my high school 4 years, but it really happened in the second 2 years of high school. So ended up becoming, leading the team in tackles, being team captain, all of those things by the end of high school, but entering almost not even being able to play.
Dang.
Yeah.
For those that can't see Tim or that can, but can't see him standing up, he's a big dude. How tall are you?
6'1".
6'1".
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you weigh now?
190.
Yeah. He's a big dude.
Yeah.
So congrats that all worked out.
Yeah, man. That was that was a journey. That was a journey.
So how did that impact you though? Like really, you might have felt like on the lower end of the totem pole in sports or whatever. What did that impact?
Yeah, it just I think like over time I realized I've had more of a chip on my shoulder for things. I realized that much later in life. You realize, oh wait, I was really pissed about this thing and didn't know it in the moment. And I think, for certainly high school, but probably even before high school, just being small and not being the most athletic guy, certainly not being, the biggest guy, things like that. Sports is a big deal, or was a big deal for me in those years. And I think it just gave me a chip to just work harder. It was hard work and trying to outdo myself or outdo others was something early on in life that just started picking up, I think, from that.
Now, one would say that that's a positive reflection of that energy.
Yeah.
To work harder, to do more. Is there any point in time throughout your younger years to where that might have ended up pushing you downward?
Yeah. Working harder, trying to work harder.
No, that chip on your shoulder.
Oh,
is it at any point in time where that energy might have turned negative?
Yeah. Yeah.
How did it present itself?
In college, just going a little bit further in college, I spent 4 years in college, not lost, but certainly not filled with much purpose. And, I think that I had the energy of wanting to be more successful, whatever that meant. I think part of the challenge for myself is I didn't really know what success looked like for myself. And so, I had this like burning desire to work harder, to be more successful. But since I didn't really have much purpose or direction for my life at that time, it just turned into a lot of frustration. And so, I wasn't really channeling any sense of hard work in any focused direction. And so I think for probably most of my college, I was more of a drifter than anything.
Drifter. Okay. We cannot forget the college experience. We're definitely going to touch upon that. Let's talk a little bit about a time where you felt like you might have really gotten derailed in life.
Yeah. Can I get into my adulthood? Or are we still back?
Oh,
not
yet.
Kid?
Almost there. Right. We're thinking maybe middle to high school. Anytime that you might have gotten derailed, maybe seeing yourself as a disappointment of some sort. Has that ever happened to you?
Yeah. I mean,
it did?
Most of my growing up, probably.
It did? What experience stands out to you the most with that?
Man.
Whew.
Getting derailed as a kid,
/ teenager.
Yeah. I mean, not making the AA basketball team, not make, I just think back to sports a lot, sports, felt like a constant letdown, whether it was, not making the team or making the team, but not playing, or playing, but our team sucked and we were losing a bunch of games. And I think most of my, high school and even pre-high school was probably a lot of letdowns, particularly around sports.
How did you manage that? Let's say you got let down back to back to back, which could have happened. How did you get over that?
Not well. Yeah.
You didn't manage it well.
No. I mean, I didn't have any like blow ups or anything, but it was just like, I didn't have the tools back then to figure out, you respond with resilience, and then you set a goal and you strive with focus to get to that next level. I didn't have any of that, so it was kind of just probably like a series of letdowns.
Yeah, so that falls underneath the principle of responding opposed to reacting. Don't you all wish we knew that?
Yeah,
and was trained that?
Oh, it's the tools. It's just like knowing how. Man, if I knew what I know as an adult back when I was a kid, my trajectory as a kid would have been completely different. My trajectory as a kid was pretty mediocre, up until even post-college.
If you were to do it all over again, what would you implement?
Well, first and foremost, I would have figured out one thing that I was really passionate about, and I would have channeled my focus around that one thing. I think when you're a kid, it's great to do lots of things, try lots of things, play all the sports, do all the hobbies, figure out, what you like, what really gets you going. But I think as you start to get older, one of the things that I didn't do until post-college that I wish I would have done is to really be thoughtful about, like, what am I good at? What do I like doing? And how can I channel my focus towards getting really good at that one thing? And that would have channeled, whether it was practice or getting coaches or tutors or whatever. It would have been a whole different set of things than anything that I actually did.
Wow. That's extremely valuable advice. I want to encourage people to maybe even rewind that and listen to it again. That's gold. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. So it seems like you've got something that you're itching to tell us about here, because all right. It seemed like there was a lot of athleticism and sports. That was kind of the main theme of your youth and adolescence. With any sport, you're going to have your ups and your downs, and you probably got a lot of valuable lessons through doing that, but no major derailing, no jail.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's all right.
Well, good job there.
Very privileged upbringing. Yeah.
Very nice. Very good. So let's fast forward. Let's push into college now. Okay. How'd that experience? You said you had that chip on your shoulder, but you were drifting. The devil loves drifters. So what happened there? How'd that impact you?
Yeah. There might have been some jail in college. No, maybe. There was some, my college life was all about having fun, kind of hanging out with whoever was around me, whoever,
what kind of people were around you?
I had great people around me. I had friends that had come from high school, new friends I met at the dorms in college.
Yeah.
But just kind of a general sentiment of, we're here to party, we're here to have fun, and not a lot of like forward looking, which there is a time and a place for just enjoying where you're at, not having a lot of responsibility. And, there's a lot of times where I think back to college and think about, man, what a great moment in life where, you have the freedom to just kind of hang out, get to know yourself and have fun and not have a bunch of responsibility. Once you get out of college, or high school, or whenever you start working and really taking care of yourself, responsibility starts to set in and just escalate over time. So there's a lot to be, there's a lot to look back and, value about that time. But I think, more than anything, a lot of it feels like wasted time, like time where I, just kind of was there to have fun, was there to enjoy myself, but not really there to think bigger, think about the next level, think about the person that I want to be, that I want to become, and what kind of path, I need to start getting myself on to get there.
Other than wasting time, any other regrets, perhaps, that come to mind from college?
Yeah. I got into gambling in college. Sports betting and online poker was like very new on the scenes online when I went into college, and that became I have a very addictive personality. When I get into something that I like. As I started getting older, I realized, oh my gosh, my blinders can go on real fast, and I spent way too much time going down that path, spending time with people in college that were into gambling and just making that a much bigger part of my life than I wish it was. And by the grace of God, when I found my career, I'll never forget being in this building at Keller Williams when I was 21 years old. I didn't know how to sell real estate, so I would pull my laptop up and play online poker. I'm not kidding. Like I didn't know how to go out and sell real estate. So I was just kind of sitting in the office, ran out of things to do, and I would do that.
In this office, by the way.
In this office. And, something clicked, and I learned a lot about, in a very short period of time, how to get going and build a business. And the idea of entrepreneurship, the idea of working for yourself, creating a business, real estate, and also just like sales and thinking of sales almost like a sport. Those things started to click, and it just like completely took my focus and kind of left that all in the rearview mirror.
Where'd that road of gambling ultimately take you? Sounds like a dark period.
Yeah, it was a dark period. I didn't really have much money to lose back then, so it wasn't like it wasn't like a big money thing as much as it was just down a path of kind of addiction and just like not being able to really go spend my time on productive things and just spending my time on being in that scene, hanging out with people in that scene, and all that.
How many hours a day do you think you spent on that?
Oh man,
in your worst moments?
In my worst moments,
yeah.
Oh, maybe 12. I really can't remember, 12. But yeah, I mean, I was sitting in college with nothing to do. It was pretty consuming.
Wow. Yeah, that's all. You know what I would call that? That's simply dark energy. When it takes hold of you like that,
yeah,
it's dark energy. And it seems like you've done a great job turning that into light, right? Redirecting it into positivity, keeping those blinders on, but in the right direction.
Yeah.
And I want you all to pay close attention to this. Tim said it himself. He had a fairly privileged upbringing, and it seemed like if he were to get derailed, it was through the means of sports. It wasn't like he was dealing drugs and going to jail and things like that. But even so, with all of that goodness, there is the opportunity for things to grab a hold of you. And we don't know when it's going to strike. Tim was in college. You were 20-ish years old, 18 to 20 years old when that happened. He made it a long way before something like that came up. And how long was that period for you?
Probably 3 years.
3?
Yeah.
Okay. And then, correct me if I'm wrong, but it seemed like the pivotal point for you there was when you entered real estate. But you were kind of in real estate, but also doing that. So what ultimately was the deciding factor to when you cut it?
Yeah.
You said, no more, I'm done.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, first and foremost, I got into real estate because I couldn't get a job. I graduated in, a real job, one that pays you money to show up. I graduated college 2009. I was a finance major, and I didn't get any job offers, and the market was crashing. It was a tough time to get a job in finance. I remember I probably interviewed 30, 40, maybe 50 places over the course of like 6 months.
Wow.
And I moved back to Austin. I was still interviewing unsuccessfully, and I got my real estate license, joined the market center here at Keller Williams, and still with an intent to get a real job that pays me money. But I would show up here every day, and I would try and, be productive. I ran out of things to do after an hour or a couple hours, and would kind of sit around. And
you're how old again?
21.
You're 21. Okay.
Yeah, 21.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget, there was a productivity coach that worked for the brokerage here downstairs who, her name was Betsy, and Betsy convinced me to sign up for a sales seminar that would teach me how to go out and actually find business. And I didn't have any money. It cost $800. So I borrowed $800 from my girlfriend,
who
is now my wife.
Okay.
I did pay her back eventually. But I literally had barely enough money to drive to the office, pay for gas. And so borrowed the money from my girlfriend and went to the seminar, and it was 8 weeks, and they taught you how to pick up the phone and call people who had shown interest in selling their home and invite yourself over to meet with them in person. And, that class from a business standpoint changed my life.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Where was it hosted?
Here at this office, in this room, in this room that we're sitting in. Wow.
No,
that's weird. I just realized that right now. That was 15 years ago. And I showed up, and they gave everybody a list and people who had indicated interest in selling their home. And I remember I called the first one, and they answered, and they said hello, and I hung up on them immediately because I didn't know what to say, and I felt weird. And And then I called them back, and they invited me over to come and talk to them about selling their home. It was the craziest thing. And I just said, you know what? This obviously works. And so I kept at it, and I kept at it, and I kept at it. And, at one point, I had gotten to probably almost 3 years, making about 12 hours of phone calls a day. And I just would sit in a room, and I realized very quickly that kind of success in the job that I had, I had a goal. So I had said, I want to make $100,000 a year. And I set that goal because I had a new chip on my shoulder, which was that I couldn't get a job, and all of my friends from school all had paying jobs. And so I wanted to make more money than my friends were making in their paying jobs. And so to me, that number was $100,000 a year. And I had this chip on my shoulder about that. And so I ran the math. I said, well, if I want to make 100,000, then I've got to, I knew how much I would make per house sale. So I kind of ran the math back, and I realized I needed to sell 20 houses or whatever the number was. And then I, decided, well, how many clients would I need to sign up to sell that many houses, and how many people would I have to meet with to sign up? And I was just guessing at how these numbers would kind of relate to each other. But
yeah, conversion ratios.
Yeah, I just kind of wrote it all out and made some guesses at how they would all convert. And so I had a number at the top that said, I got to talk to this many people per day. And if I talk to this many people per day, I'll meet with this many in person. I'll sign up this many. I'll sell this many homes. I'll make this much money. And so I set that goal, and I just decided, I said, every single day I'm going to come in, I'm going to talk to that many people before I leave the office. And it was not very intelligent work. It was just kind of hard-headed, hard work, because it turned out to be like 12 hours of phone calls a day, every day, to hit that number. And I'd convinced myself that if I did that for a whole year without stopping, I'd hit my number. And I did it for a whole year, and I think I hit like half of my number. It was not what I had hoped for from a financial standpoint, but I'd also talked to so many people that I had thousands of, every time I talked to somebody, if they told me, yeah, I am thinking about selling my home, but not right now, I'd say, well, can I follow back up with you? And they'd say, sure. And I said, well, when are you going to sell? And they would say, next summer, Christmas time, next winter, whatever. And I'd say, great. Can I call you back then? And they say, yeah. So I'd say, perfect. And so I had this little organized management system, and I put them all in. And by the end of the year, even though I only hit like half my number, I had thousands of homeowners who had said, I am planning on selling. Here's when I'm planning on selling. If you call me back at that time, I'd be happy to have you come over and meet with me at my house. And here's all my contact information. And so by the end of the year, I was so motivated by what I had. I had basically created this asset for myself that, it didn't really matter how much money I was making. I had this momentum, and I was on a roll. And now I could see the light, and I was just like, it just kept me going that much harder.
The process was proving itself to you at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you're really in the game, right? And that's what makes it fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it took you how long to get there?
Yeah. Well, just to get to that point was a full year of 12 hours a day, like
calling,
not stopping. Yeah.
I want to ask everybody listening to this to put themselves in that situation just for one moment. But let's dull it down a bit. Let's say you're going to make phone calls to random strangers for 1 hour a day. 1 hour. That is some of the most gritty work I have ever heard of in my entire life. I know Navy SEAL training is gritty. Cold calling for 12 hours a day is right up there with that.
Yeah.
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 You've got to be proud of yourself.
It took me, I remember it probably took me, in 1 hour, I would make, when I first started, one phone call. It took me a full hour to get the confidence up to make the call, not hang up on them, and prepare myself for the call. So before I talked to anybody, the amount of research I was doing to prepare myself for a conversation with them, I was looking up their house, I was looking up their neighborhood, I was looking up everything. By the time I finally got the confidence to call them and they didn't answer, I had to start that process over on the next house that I was calling. And so it was very inefficient because I was scared. I didn't want, I was nervous. And, by the time I stopped making phone calls, I was making about 1,000 phone calls a day. And so the level of productivity that grew with my confidence and my systems and my, skills and training and all that, it just over time, just like compounded on itself.
over time. Yeah. Any memorable moments that really put you over the top with your confidence that really helped you level up? Was it maybe your first listing that you signed, or was it just a time period, like after your first year and a half, you felt really efficient?
What helped me with my confidence in sales back at that time, more at least the thing that comes to mind for me, is that I hired a coach early in my career. So after that sales seminar, I sold some houses, made some money, and I continued, living like a poor college kid. And I would use whatever money I made to kind of invest in myself and in my ability to keep this thing going. And so one of the first things I did was I hired a coach, and I paid this coach $12,000 for 1 year. And they would talk to me for 30 minutes a week, same time every week.
Was that coach or still a coach?
His name was Rick.
Yeah.
And he's still a coach, but I don't think he coaches in sales. I think he's more coaching on more life development stuff today.
Okay.
But back then, Rick helped me. I thought this idea of scripts really bothered me. I was like, I can talk to people. I know how to have a conversation with somebody. I don't need scripts. And he helped me to realize, or maybe I realized after failing enough times, that people ask the same questions. They provide the same objections to the things that you're asking them to do. And, having a well thought through strategic response is smart. And being able to be confident in that response that you need to give whenever somebody brings that objection up is it's just a smart thing to do. And so what my coach helped me to do is he helped me to realize all of the objections, all of the things that were going to come up. And he helped me process through what would be an appropriate way to respond when that thing comes up that's going to help me continue to get to the next step. And, I was going on listing appointments against 15, 16 other real estate agents at the time. I mean, it was
wow,
the most competitive thing I have ever done in business probably back then. And, you're the 12th out of 16 people that are going to show up. And, how are you going to take that listing? You don't leave without having it signed, basically, was kind of my mentality going in. And in order to do that, you had to really know the objections that were going to come at you and really be prepared to respond to them. And I think that I can very specifically remember being in listing appointments where they would respond with an objection that I had planned and prepared for, and I would give my response back, and they would go, okay, that makes sense. Okay, let's go ahead and do it. And they would just move on right on forward. And I just remember the feeling of delivering on this thing I had practiced on and it working. It's just made me lean in even more and realize I got this. And it just instilled a lot more confidence.
Yeah, whether we realize it or not, for those that are listening, we script practice for other things too. We just might not have a written script that we're reading off of, and we're not practicing with a friend or something, but we repeat these things that we're going to say over and over and over again, and then when we need to use them, we will say them.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
It was
wow. Good. That's a great story. Thank you for sharing that. I'm picturing it now. So think about this. You're 21. I'm Tim Heyl, the realtor. At what point did you establish the group?
Yeah, my real estate team.
The team.
Yeah. 20, it was kind of organic, but I'd say around 2011, 2012. So, 2010 was my first full year, and that's the year I was speaking about. In 2011, I started picking up. I think I did 3 times my goal in my second year. It's so actually my coach told me, I told them my goal of what I wanted to do. I said I had I'd mapped out this 13-year plan to make $1 million in a year, but not have a full-time job in the business. That was my 13-year plan.
Yes.
And my coach said, and I had my 1-year plan, which was to make the $100,000. And I felt like that was where I needed to be on track for my 13-year plan. And he said, you may be underwhelmed at what you accomplish in the next 12 months, but you will far exceed what you think you can accomplish in the next 5 years. And that really stuck with me. And that was very true in my life. My 13-year plan, I outblew that plan by a long shot where I had told myself I needed to be by year 5. But my first year I fell way short. And I just had no idea how fast this thing could really grow. My second year in the business, I hired a part-time assistant. And then my third year in the business, made that person full-time, hired another assistant. and brought on a agent to show buyers property. So that
Your friend?
well, the agent was somebody I met through here at the market center, but my part-time assistant was a friend of mine. Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I'm thinking of Katie Collins.
Oh, Katie. Katie came in. Katie and I still work together, and we've been friends since high school. I met her in high school as well. We've worked together now for, 10 years, maybe more than 10 years. But Katie came in later. Katie came in when I was taking 30 or 40 listings a month. And, it was very difficult to try and run a small business while you're out taking 30 to 40 listings
Big time.
a month.
That's a lot.
Yeah. And so Katie came in to get me out of taking listings. So she became my first listing agent around 2013, 2014, somewhere in there. And Katie came from pharmaceutical sales. She hadn't done anything in real estate. And I brought her on every appointment with me, and she just observed and watched. She's like a sponge, and she picked it up pretty fast. After about a month and a half, 2 months, we kept going on appointments together, but I let her do the talking, and I just observed and kind of coach her in the car to and from. And then after 90 days, I never went on a listing appointment again. And Katie took that job over.
Wow. What a relief.
Yeah.
Holy smokes. So how many listings a month?
It was 30 to 40. I remember
30 to 40.
My best month when I was in production, I remember I sold 35 listings. It was like March of 2013 or 2014 or something. And I mean, talk about craziness going on.
It's crazy.
Yeah, it was a lot going on.
Total madness.
Yeah.
You were working. Did you sleep?
Back then I had very little responsibility. I up until end of 2012, I wasn't married, had no kids. I was just like, basically like a college kid, but spending all of his time building a small business. And so it's a very fortunate thing if you can work on building a business as an entrepreneur before you develop a lot of responsibilities in life. I was very fortunate to get started with that early.
So you're getting this crazy momentum. You're selling a ton of properties. You're building your team. I heard from a bird one time that maybe throughout that process, it all kind of got disheveled.
Yeah, many times.
Many times. Tell us about the first time.
Yeah.
What did that look like?
The first time, it was about this time when I was taking a lot of listings, running around like a crazy person. I was, still on the phones, making a million calls. I was going out in the evenings on listing appointments and, trying to manage things in between. And I had a small team. I had 2 assistants or 2 administrative employees and then a buyer's agent. And I came in the office one day and I had a letter on my door, pasted on my door in the office, which was my first hire's resignation letter. And
what? It was posted on the freaking door?
He posted on my door, and it was like 3 pages of single space, 12-point font, kind of all the reasons why he never wanted to work for me ever again. And it was all true and right, and it was just basically a list of grievances of all of the, pain that I had put him through just like terrible management. I was a kid, running around with huge ambition and the hard work to back that up, and zero management skills and very minimal leadership skills.
It's like a freight train.
Yeah, exactly.
Where nothing's getting in your way.
Exactly.
And if they could keep up, great. If not,
yeah,
chaos.
Yeah, exactly. And so, he left, and then the rest of the folks ended up joining him, and they went and started a team somewhere else. And so I was left with a lot of clients who wanted answers and phone time, and a mess of a business to try and figure out how to clean up.
Now, what's going on in the background? Because you've got your girlfriend at the time about all this.
Yeah.
How's that relationship?
Well, she lived in Dallas, so we'd talk on the phone. I'd go up on the weekends, but Monday through Friday, I was able to put in as many hours as I needed to put in because I had nothing else going on. My wife, we got married in the second part of 2012, but she, the times that we could hang out were on the weekends. I could drive up to Dallas, or she could come down here. So one of the things that I committed to early on was not working on the weekends, and that was I grew up, my dad was an entrepreneur, but he didn't work on the weekends, and, you didn't have cell phones or smartphones back then. So it's
Really unplug.
probably easier to unplug, but it was normal to me to not work on the weekends. And it was very strange to me that realtors were like working all weekend, making calls, trying to do a bunch of business. So I kind of committed myself to like, I'm going to be super focused Monday through Friday, but I'm not going to work on the weekends. And so, that's what I did. And so I didn't work with a lot of buyers because buyers want to go look at properties on the weekends. So I kind of narrowed my focus to finding sellers and helping sellers sell their homes. And I'd spend my time on the weekends with my girlfriend, who is now my wife. So didn't fail on that point, fortunately.
Yes. So, I mean, it's hard to believe that your drive comes from one thing, and that's having a chip on your shoulder. I'm sure that's a piece of the pie. I would say that it's probably coming from another type of knowing or belief.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think there's somebody told me a long time ago, when you're young, and this is these are hard things to skip in life, because, for my kids, I would like for them to skip maybe at least one of these phases, but, that most people are motivated by money, power, and fame. And at some point in their life, typically first, and then some people graduate to being more motivated by impact, and some people eventually graduate to being more motivated by legacy and building a legacy. And I'm sure there's lots of other frameworks to think about this, but that really clicked for me, because in retrospect, I'm only 36 years old, but most of my 20s was kind of a money, power, fame, mostly money. Being broke and not having a job and having that chip on my shoulder, mostly money, but I think that money, power, and fame thing in my 20s was a big driver for me. And, when I in my late 20s, I started journaling a lot. And I remember when I turned 30, a big part of my journaling was about, the things that motivated me before were less motivating to me today. And the things that were starting to motivate me were much more wholesome things. And, not to say that, I stopped being motivated by money or by any of these other things, but it really started to shift, and I started to have much more conscious awareness of that shift. And I think part of it was being married and having kids. I think part of it was having made money, and that being less of a chip or push. But that really started to shift for me as I kind of exited my 20s, entered my 30s.
I like how you said the word graduated. You graduate to what was the word that you used? Money, power, fame, and then what was
impact?
Impact.
Yeah.
And then legacy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really good.
Yeah. I think it's like, I use that word because, I think about my kids and I want them to skip this like drive for money, power, and fame. And certainly not everybody goes through that, but I think that it can be a hard thing to try and convince somebody to skip. It's sort of like there's a lot of things in life that you just have to work through yourself. And for me, there wasn't anybody that could have told me when I was 21 years old that life would be so much better if you just focus on making an impact on other people's lives. I think there probably wasn't any guidance that could have been instilled in me that would have had me skip this like drive to make money when I was 21 and broke.
Oh, yeah. So when you're 20, what about the money?
What about it?
What would, let's say, I want to make a lot of money, right? This is the thought you're telling yourself.
Yeah.
What would it do for you? What happens when you get it?
Well, it did a lot.
Then
for
what?
me. It did a lot for me, actually.
Yeah. What was the story that you were telling yourself? Oh, when I get the money, I'm going to be like this, or I'm going to do that. What was that?
For me, so fortunately, I had a lot of great mentors in my 20s. I would say where I spent a lot of time prior to my 20s, kind of floating a little bit. In my 20s, I had a lot of really great mentors, and one of them, and really key mentor that really changed my life, is Gary Keller. And in this office, in a room downstairs, I probably a year or a couple of years after that sales training I went to a class that he does called Quantum Leap. And Quantum Leap was all about self-leadership and how to lead and guide yourself in the key areas of your life, whether it be spiritual, physical, key relationships, your career, with money. And for the first time in my life, I've kind of broke out those buckets, and I started asking myself, what does my life look like does success look like for me in this bucket? What do I want my life to look like? What are the values I want to have? What are the goals I want to achieve in each of these buckets? And also from Gary Keller, I learned a lot about leverage. Leverage meaning, money is, he always says, money is good for the good that it can do. Well, a way that connected for me in my 20s is money will help me leverage my time. And if I can leverage my time, I can do more of these things. And so in my 20s, most of where I spent my money was on leverage. And that could have been from, hiring somebody to help me clean my house, all the way to hiring employees, to, anything that helped me to continue to do the things that I did best, that brought the most value to the thing I was trying to accomplish, so that I didn't have to do the other things. And money was very valuable for me. I wasn't out buying boats and cars and, silly stuff. I was reinvesting the money in having people come and help me to do the things that had to get done that probably wouldn't have been the best use of my time if I wanted to continue down the path I was on. And by doing that, it was incredibly valuable because it allowed me to keep hammering on the one thing that was causing my success and just keep doubling down on that over and over again without letting everything else fall apart.
Tim, it's very disciplined of you to choose that instead of buying the boats, and cars.
Well, that's mentors. So that's truly mentors. And Gary was a big one.
Who else?
A guy named Ed Perry. He was a big one for me and still is. Older gentleman that had incredible success in his life and his career. Was much more enlightened than me. Kind of on the other side, focusing on legacy, not the money, power, and fame stuff. And I could go on and on and on, all kinds of mentors in my 20s, but,
how'd you get access to them?
Man, some luck and a lot of searching. Like with Gary Keller, I'll say it's both, the searching was that when I joined this company, I decided I'm here, I'm going to listen to what the guy has to say and I'm going to follow it. And so whether any podcast he did, any book he wrote, any speaking engagement that he had, whatever it was, I was there, I was listening, I was absorbing, I listened to everything. I was constantly there. The luck part of it is that in 2012, the Austin Business Journal named me the #1 selling agent in the city on the front cover of the magazine. And he read it and he called me and he said, "Who the heck are you?" He said, you're in my company and I never heard of you before, but they say that you're the top selling agent in the city. Come talk to me. And so I think it was, cool. Kind of a mixture of those things, but then it was just showing up every time that I would get invited to be in a place where he was. I'm sitting in the front row, I'm asking questions, I'm engaging, and I'm trying to get more. And then I'm delivering results on the back end, which then allows me to stay in that room and continue to have those conversations. And so it was a little bit of like putting myself in the right position, identifying who do I want to follow, who do I want to be like, getting myself in that position, delivering results so that person wants to continue engaging, and that cycle just continues to build and build and build.
Was this planned at all, or is this all a map that you had in your subconscious?
Yeah, probably the latter.
Yeah,
I certainly didn't imagine that I would have a direct, mentor relationship with Gary Keller. I just sort of said, I want to absorb everything that person is saying because I recognize the success that he's built and I want to follow down a similar path. And I put myself in the position and then kind of, things kind of showed up after that.
Wow. A lot of lessons, a lot of golden nuggets dropped in the past 5 minutes right here. So many. Consistency, positioning yourself, right? Wow. Okay. Who's somebody that you want to meet that you haven't met yet that you'd love to just have a conversation with?
Nick Saban.
I think that's the second time I heard that name.
Seriously?
Yeah. Where's he live again?
Alabama.
Alabama?
Yeah.
Okay. How come you want to meet him?
I see him as the greatest football coach of all time. I think that, his just what he has accomplished and the way he's accomplished it is just extremely inspirational to me. And he is one of those guys that it's kind of like, man, if I could just sit in a room and listen to him tell his stories and talk about his ups and downs, I think I would absorb some serious nuggets and improve the way I'm going about my stuff.
Nick Saban. He still lives in Alabama?
Yeah.
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 Okay. Is he accessible to you?
We'll find out. I haven't tried yet, but
Yeah.
I'll try one day.
Yeah. What I learned with reaching out to people is if you just keep rescheduling, that eventually you'll get it. Just takes time.
We're here now.
Yeah, we are. Yeah. All right. So let me ask you this. When you wake up every day, you've got the fire inside you. Let's call it fire. How do you describe it?
Man, a burning sense of urgency.
To go where?
Just to keep going. You know, I don't know that any individual morning I'm waking up thinking about the big picture. I think what it is that every morning I'm waking up thinking about just the next step, you know, the next thing. And, you know, that drive has changed over time as well. You know, when I started Homeward, there was a sense of, I see the problem in home buying and home selling. I see the problem, and there is a clear opportunity to make a dramatic step change. And I want to go drive that change. I want to create an impact in this space and take everything that I've learned and the relationships I've built and take that and make that impact. What's happened over the last 5-6 years is that I've developed a number of tremendous relationships, people that work for me inside my business, people that are real partners to me in my business, investors, coaches and mentors, board members, advisors, people that have just like poured out for this thing. And so a lot of what drives me right now in this moment, especially when you think about the market shift and all the kind of chaos that's been around, is showing up for those people. And so, you know, I think that what drives me shifts and evolves over time. And there's like kind of the big drivers and then the more micro daily drivers. And I would certainly say over the last 18 months, 2 years, it's this sense of urgency about showing up the best I can possibly show up for every single person that is showing up for me and with me. And just a sense of urgency around, let's take it to the next step. Let's take it to the next step.
And why show up for those people?
Oh, because they're my people. You know, they've put so much trust in me, and they've poured themselves out, whether it's through time, money, stress. I mean, to build something like what we're building takes a lot of commitment from a lot of people. And, you know, when you see that, and then when you go through hard times and you see things shift and shake and change and they keep showing up, it just reinforces how much more you want to show up for them.
How does that reciprocity make you feel when you get to see it and do it every day? Makes you feel good?
Really good.
Is there any other words you'd use?
I mean, fulfilling. I think at the end of the day,
fulfillment.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, like the most fulfillment I've had in my career is, you know, being able to show back up for the people that are showing up for me every day and show up for them. Just, I mean, when people are showing up for you and you're showing back up for them and that reciprocity exists and it exists over long periods of time, it's one of the best feelings that you can have. I mean, that's like real relationships being built over, you know, you got in together because you were working at a thing, but you build this relationship over time that is much stronger than most.
Yes. And I see the correlation to sports, being on teams, right?
Yeah.
And how business is a sport.
Yeah.
I said that out loud one time, and then later on in my career, I read it somewhere or heard somebody else say it. I'm like, that was so refreshing. I think maybe Grant Cardone or somebody. It was so refreshing to hear that because it is. Business is a freaking sport, and it's fun.
Yeah.
And it's about playing your best game.
Yeah.
So the fact, I think this is what fires you up. Correct me if I'm wrong. The fact that you get to get up every day and go out there and play your favorite sport with your favorite people.
That for sure.
Right?
For sure. And it's funny, like when you ask, what do I do for fun? Like when I'm playing golf, I'm thinking about my sport. I'm not I like to play golf. It's fun to like get out and have a couple beers and not have any cares or anything like that. But golf isn't the thing that I'm like striving to get better at. I'm thinking about how do I get better back in my sport? I mean, truly it is a gift for your career to be a mix of what makes you money, what is your passion, you know, what really gets you excited. It's like
gift.
Watching the Super Bowl, watching like Patrick Mahomes, you know, who just won the Super Bowl. It's like the dude gets to wake up every morning all year long and work at getting better at football, which is like the thing that he loves to do and the thing that makes him money, you know, and like I'm sure he's got a lot of hobbies. I'm sure he's got other hobbies, but like when you are that good, that becomes your hobby, and figuring out how to keep getting better, that just becomes your hobby. And it just becomes, it's like, you don't want to become so obsessive about it that your identity just shows up in your work and what you do, and there's a balance there, but it's a gift when your career and your hobbies overlap like that.
Indeed, it is a gift. Yes. Positive energy is a gift. Compliments are a gift. Niceties. Do you invest in personal development right now? Throughout your time as an adult, what would you say is the most transformational experience when it comes to personal development for you?
What has been?
Yeah. Any courses or seminars or anything come to mind?
Well, the biggest impact on my personal development has probably been, kind of from a personal development standpoint, has been that class Quantum Leap.
Wow.
That was a class I took in my early 20s. I probably took it 5 or 6 times.
Anybody can take it, right?
Yeah.
It's open to the public.
Anybody can take it.
Dang.
I took it 5 or 6 times and then I started teaching it. And, something that sort of overlaps with it or overlapped with it for me, is a guy named Brian Johnson. He ran a company called Optimize, which he's changed it now. It's called Heroic Media. But Optimize takes a similar concept, which is they don't break out 6 areas of your life: spiritual, physical, relationship, career, financial. They don't break that out. He just breaks it into energy, work, and love. And energy, work, love, you can think energy is your mental energy, your physical energy, your spiritual energy, your emotional energy, work is work, and love is relationships. And, he breaks it out there, and he's got a 12-month coaching course that I did probably 6 years ago, probably six years ago.
12-month?
12-month. Yep. And, it's just online. I did it online. I did it with some friends, and that was also one of the most impactful self-development things that I've ever done.
Still around?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, definitely check that out if you're listening. Give that an inquire. That's amazing.
Very good.
So let's wrap this up by talking a little bit about the future, the legacy. Let's say somebody, maybe your friends or family or grandkids, listen to this in 100 years from now. Mm-hmm. What message do you ultimately want to leave with them?
Man, wish you would have given me some time to think about that one.
Take your time.
Yeah, let me think for a second.
Yeah. It's important. We can always cut this out. No big deal. Take your time.
No, it's a good one. It's the reason that this is a hard question to answer is because you don't want to give too light of an answer to such a heavy question,
Agreed.
Probably what comes to mind for me is that I'll just kind of answer the question by telling you something that is important for me to tell my kids as they get bigger, which is that I want them to have a sense of purpose in their life, a strong sense of purpose in their life. And, I think purpose comes from finding the thing that you are, what I mentioned earlier. It's like the hedgehog concept from Jim Collins. He says, what are you passionate about? What are you good at? And what can you create value in the world with, right? Like there's a couple of different ways to say that last one, but it's like identifying the thing where you can make a real impact on the world that you're actually passionate about, that you're good at. And I think for me, until I was 21, I didn't have that. I didn't even know how to go about finding it. Didn't even know that I should be on a search for it. And I see a lot of adults my age and older than my age that still haven't figured that out. And one of the things that has brought me an incredible amount of joy and fulfillment is that I have been on a journey with purpose, and that purpose has evolved over time, and it'll continue to evolve, but I'm constantly trying to spend as much time as I can on the area that I can drive impact, that I'm passionate about, that I'm also good at, and I'm trying to spend as little time outside of that as possible, and that keeps me excited. It keeps me fulfilled. It keeps me going, and it's really fun. Like when I was a kid, going back to that, I wasn't very good at a lot of things. I was like mediocre at a lot of things. And it's hard to develop confidence when you're not very good at anything. And as an adult, I got really good at one thing, which was selling real estate. And then that evolved into running a small business. And then that evolved into, some other things. And I would say for most of my adult life, I've had a strong sense of purpose, and that has been exciting. It's kept me going. It's kept me fulfilled, kept me like hustling for more. It's made me a better person in all the other areas of my life. And I think finding that sense of purpose as soon as you can, not as soon as you can. I think it's good to just kind of be a generalist for a period of time in your life, but to start to narrow in as you get older and find that sense of purpose, the thing that you can just be the best at, whatever that is, and just like spend as much time on that as you can, I think is really important in life.
Do you have yours written down?
Do I have what written down?
Your life's purpose?
I do. My wife and I have a whole series of things around that written down.
How long is it?
Well, I have many versions.
Okay.
I have one statement that Liz and I have written down together, which is just to multiply love in the world. It's very general, and it is meaningful for us, but it's very general on the surface. But I also have like a 10-page, what I call avatar, which is breaking that out into what that really means for me. Which
cool.
Is something I went through with a coach of mine probably 8 years ago or something. And that's really like this avatar. It's really simple concept. It's like, who am I in 10 years? I actually did it when I was, I think 29, because it was who am I at 40? And I broke it down into these key areas of my life. And I just sat down and journaled on what does this part of my life look like in 10 years? And it's long, so I don't read it all the time, but when I do read it from time to time, it's very, very inspirational to go back to. And I highly recommend that as well. Like, can you put down on paper what your life looks like 10 years from now in these key areas of your life that matter most?
Is there a way to get a framework of that somewhere? Would we be able to Google search that template? Or
I don't know. My coach back then that taught it to me, he runs something called NLP, Neuro-Linguistic Programming. I think NLP.com. Anyway, his name is Matt, and Matt took me through it. I don't know if there's something online about it or not, but
it's a good place to start, nonetheless.
Good place to start. NLP.com. Find Matt, and he'd be a great guy to take you through that.
And the last question I like to ask everybody here is, let's say you were having a conversation with your younger self. What would you tell them that you're most proud of who you've become, and what advice would you give them?
Most proud of? Grit. Just never, just through all of the pain that I think about over the last 15 years, which has been a lot of pain, not giving up, not throwing the towel in, and just like continuing to press forward when it was the hardest. What was the second question? Advice?
What advice would you give them? Or maybe not advice, but what would you just say to them?
Yeah. Talk less, listen more, ask better questions.
It's really good. Reading a book about questions right now. And you have two mindsets. One is judgment and one is learning. And naturally, we're in the judgment. When you shift to learning, the world opens up. So ask better questions.
I love that.
It's good. Wow. This is fired up. Thank you for sharing your story.
Yeah. Thanks for doing it. This was great.
Yes.
I didn't know what you were going to ask me. We went places I didn't know. This was great. I enjoyed it.
I'm glad. Wow. Yeah. This stuff always leaves me buzzing for like a couple of days. And I know this one's definitely going to do that. Folks, if you want to reach out to Tim, how can they book a meeting somehow? You know what I mean? How can they contact you?
Shoot me an email.
Shoot me an email.
Tim@homeward.com. Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah, I'm still just processing everything we covered. That was freaking incredible. Folks, thank you so much for watching. Until next time, Austin, stay fired up. Cheers.